What's up, everybody? My name is Daniel Carter, and this is my 1971 Datsun 521. I've had the truck for about 2 years now, and I love this truck. I have a 1978 Datsun 280Z, and because of that little Datsun, I have absolutely fallen in love with Datsuns in general. One day, I was on Craigslist, and I found this little truck. It was down in Los Angeles, and I live in Reno. So a couple of weeks later, I was in Los Angeles. While I was there, I decided to see if the truck was still available, and it was. So I got a hold of the owner and went to go take a look at it. While I was looking at it, I absolutely had to have it. The truck is just so cool. It reminds me of the old mini truck scene that was really big back in the 80s and the 90s, when everybody was just buying these old trucks or new trucks and slamming them. Everybody was getting Ford Rangers, S10s, S15s, the little old Mazda B series pickups, and they were just slamming them. They were removing the leaf springs, cutting the springs, whatever they had to do to get this thing on the ground. That's what they were doing. And these old little Datsun pickups were no exception. And so when I saw this little guy all blacked out and definitely squatted, it just reminded me of those days. It reminded me of just Chicanos. It just screamed East LA, and I had to have it. So I had to make a decision. I had just enough money to buy the pickup, like down to my last dollar. So in one hand, I had airfare taken care of, back home to Reno from LAX. I could hop on a plane, keep my money, and arrive home safely, no problems. Or I could roll the dice. I could spend my last dollar on a 40-something-year-old pickup that the previous owner said it should make it back to Reno. So obviously I chose the pickup. Threw away the plane ticket, gave him the money, hopped in the truck, and drove. Well, it took about 12 hours to get home. I've been driving the truck pretty regularly ever since, until recently. The cab started to smell like gasoline, more so than usual. Of course, these old trucks are pretty stinky when you're driving them. It got worse and worse over the course of a couple of days, and then one day it just died on me. Have not been able to get it fired up since then. So between that, a couple of other issues that the truck has, I figured it was time to just tear it down and start over with the pickup. So that brings us to today, Project SR521. If you saw the thumbnail, obviously you saw that it says SR20 powered Datsun 521, and that's because that is the goal. You see what I did there? SR521, put them together. You like that, huh? Okay, so let's take a look under the hood and see what's in there. So if you know anything about Nissan engines or Datsuns, then you will probably recognize this engine. It looks like it's an old NAPC series engine. If you look over here, we'll zoom in. The official name of the truck was, or the model I should say, was PL521, and they came with, looks like this one came with the L16, which was a 1.6 liter 4-cylinder engine, putting out about 96 horsepower. It doesn't sound like a lot of horsepower, and that's because it is not a lot of horsepower. But these trucks are so small, they're so light, they didn't really need a lot of horsepower back in the day, and they really still don't. But we're still gonna put a lot of horsepower in. Alright, front end wise, it's in pretty decent shape. This bumper, I do not believe it's stock. I'd be willing to bet money that it is not stock. So this is gonna get removed. It looks like we got some body work that's gonna have to get done. Nothing major. Some parts here are missing. I removed some of the pieces that were here while I was installing these guys, and it looks like they're already starting to peel a little bit. So that's not ideal. There's some, you know, signs of age here on the truck. Looking at it, Black was not the original color on this truck. It looks like before it was black, it was red. And before it was red, it was a light green. That old school kind of pistachio ice cream looking green, which was popular back in the day. And I think it's a great color. I think it's a beautiful color, especially on these old pickups. That old green looks pretty stellar, and you can see signs of it throughout the truck. Right here, obviously it's a mess, but underneath the black, you can see that green, and in spots you can see that the green is below the old red. Regardless, we'll eventually take this truck back down to metal, and I'm gonna keep it black. I really like the way that the black looks on there. There's obviously signs of decay. This bubbling here underneath the paint is not good news. Looks like we got some rust happening underneath here, and that's kind of a common theme with a couple of different spots on the truck. You know, some spots have been bondoed, you can see that they're cracking. Other spots have, you know, rust coming up underneath the paint. It's not in too bad a shape, but in a couple of spots it's not great, and so that's something that's gonna have to get addressed. So inside the truck, it's in really rough shape right now. We've got a super cool tachometer that just kind of hangs out. This is nice right here, but don't worry, it won't fly around because it's got a nice little zip tie to keep it kind of in place. It did have a dash cover, but it was the same diamond plate pattern as the door panels. I didn't really care for it, and at the time I was looking to find out what the problem was with the headlights and with the switch, so I removed it, and it was kind of taped up together. It had seen better days, so I just threw it away. I figured I'm going to replace it anyway. However, underneath I did find this mess of wires. One thing that I like about old cars is that they're easy to work on. Usually if you have a problem, you can just pop open the hood or remove the dash, and you look there and you can find the problem. So I was a little surprised at how many wires I found here. It's like a spaghetti bowl of wires, and I was not really able to solve the problem with the headlights. Shocker. Tailgate is in pretty decent shape. Some of the same signs of rust and corrosion popping up that we have throughout the truck. The bumper that's on here is pretty sturdy. Definitely be willing to bet money that this is not stock. Looking online at different forums and pictures and just trying to figure out what these old trucks had originally, this bumper situation's been a little tricky to figure out, but I think I've got it figured out. I've got a couple of parts on their way. Alright guys, so that's an overview of the truck, where it sits right now, kind of the condition that it's in. It's not great, but that's okay. We're gonna go ahead and get the engine out along with the transmission. We're gonna get that SR20, I'm gonna drop it in here. At that point, we'll go through and start addressing the issues with the paint, the rust, and any other issues that we might have, electrical. I'm sure we're gonna have to do a lot of suspension and brake upgrades because this truck was not originally intended to handle the kind of power that the SR20 is gonna have. The bad news is that there's not a lot of aftermarket support for these pickups. If you know of any companies that make parts for these trucks, anything really, hit me up, let me know in the comments down below, or you can also follow me on autovice.usa on Instagram, and let me know if there's any companies out there that have those parts available. The good news is though that these old Datsuns have a lot of parts that are interchangeable. There's parts that come off of the Z that'll fit your 510 or your 210 or vice versa. So I'm thinking that that's going to be a similar situation with this little guy. Just looking at the body and the dimensions, I'm willing to bet that a lot of parts off of the old 510s would fit it, which means that aftermarket parts or performance parts off of the 510s will probably fit it as well. but I'm not too sure. I guess I'll find out. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions on the pickup, if you've done a similar build like this yourself, hit me up in the comments down below. Click the subscribe button, click the little bell, make sure that you follow the build. So until then, thanks for tuning in.